Good morning. My name is Dale Hawthorne. I want to welcome you back to my channel if you're coming back, or if this is your first time, I hope that you find enough to stay and listen to a few more messages and see some more videos and find that this is something that really blesses you. This is going to be brief. It's going to be a presentation which goes with a message, which I already have given on this channel. It's on Ephesians chapter 4, 11 through 14, God's plan for growing churches. And this is a presentation that I often gave as part of that whenever I preached on that. So a lot of small churches never really understand what it takes to be a growing church. They are declining churches, and growing churches may be turning into a mega church, maybe not, maybe just growing to be a healthy church, a godly church, a church which is winning people to Christ, where people grow in the Lord and which can stand in holiness and love in the face of the surrounding culture, even if persecuted. The problem with church growth in the past is often didn't realize that they might be speaking to a church in a culture which is persecuting the church, where the government is held by people who don't believe in Jesus, who are in fact maybe fanatical about destroying people who actually believe in Jesus. So um, I've been I've seen some things in the church growth industry in the past. I met Peter Wagner, who was a big part of that, starting that off. And the book that I would recommend is George Peters' Theology of Good Church Growth. Theology, you can find that on Amazon. Theology of Church Growth, and it gives a more biblical basis. And there's some silly things which people associated with church growth in the past, but if it's involved with effective evangelism, effective disciple making, and standing effectively for Christ in the culture, that's what it's really all about. So this is what I presented to churches, and they ate this up. So when I show you the next slide, please feel welcome to pause, to reflect, and to continue on it, to use it if you want to copy it for some reason. But here it is. A growing church, receptive to pastoral leadership. A declining church, disrespect godly pastors. Often a plateaued church or a declining church will be very disrespectful, especially if the leadership is much older, like if there's a generation gap between the pastoral leadership, and those who are in eldership, which can happen, which often does happen with smaller churches, but got to be something that'll happen with a declining church, that there's a no direction, not no unified direction. Let's put it that way. There may be direction from the pastor, direction from the leaders in the church who may be again from a previous generation wanting to keep on doing what they used to be doing. Spiritually mature leadership. Growing churches have spiritually qualified leaders. Disruptive and immature leadership is very much a characteristic of a declining church, a church that is on the way down, that is losing people. They have spiritually unqualified people in places of leadership. And this is one big caution. Anytime a church elects leadership, if they put spiritually unqualified people in places of leadership and they start declining, they will face God on the day that both the people who take the leadership and those who elect them for the wrong reasons. They will face God because that church has mission in that community to reach people for Christ. And they put spiritually unqualified people in places of leadership. They're really pretty much deciding that that church is going to decline, but they may get their own way, but the church is going to decline in the future. Great Commission Church. Growing churches pray and plan definitely for evangelism and discipling new believers. They definitely look at how to reach the culture, how to raise new believers in Christ, and they welcome new believers. And growing churches regularly train members for evangelism and effective ministry. They guide people, and this is part of what Jesus did with the 12. He was training them for evangelism and effective ministry after his resurrection, after his ascension. So, yes, we don't need to do silly little things, but we do need to guide people according to the word, to share the gospel, to witness, to be effective in ministry. Declining churches, on the other hand, are status quo churches. They they pray and plan primarily for their personal needs and do pretty much what they've been doing. Maybe what they've been doing for a generation, and they don't even remember why they're doing it anymore. But they make do with people who've been serving in the same places for a long time. Those are declining churches, and it's about personal needs. And when you may have prayer, you may be praying for the same things. I remember this is going back a generation, but the prayer meetings in a status quo church were praying for the same physical needs for the same people over and over because they were safe. It was difficult to get them to pray for missions, for people who needed to know Christ, to pray for the people who needed to know Christ in their own families. But they prayed for the safe stuff, the people who had physical needs. I've heard it say that the prayer meetings in those churches tend to be going over the casualty list as far as physical ailments and an organ recital. So, last thing, ministry of each member according to God's gift and guides in love. Wow. Speaking the truth in love with spiritual gifts. That's the atmosphere of growth that Apostle Paul gives in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 15 through 16. And you'll also find that in Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12 and 14 about spiritual gifts being ministry, building up each other in Christ. Declining churches don't care about that. They want people to fill slots, and regardless of how you feel that God has called you, what your gift is, they demand that you fill in a spot. And that's the way to be a declining church. So I'll put a link in the comments to the primary message here. I hope this makes you hungry to want to follow the ministry of godly pastors, godly leadership, and grow in Christ, grow your church, not just to have big numbers to be proud of it, but that those will each be someone who will stand before Jesus and hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of your Lord." There'll be more and more people like that. And who knows, they might be your friends and family. Thank you for your time. I hope this has been a blessing to you.